us, Rabbi Lehrfield, Zatzal, and many. It would be appropriate to say that we're only here, standing here now because of his chus, the Mesiras Nefesh and the Tircha, and the Amal Torah that he put into the community, and all the pairs that we've seen in the last long tkufa are much to his chus. And Chazal said, Rashi brings in Chumash and other places that there's no greater way for a person to continue their legacy in this world than to have children or Talmidei Chachamim and children who follow his ways. And I think that if there's anybody that has that, it's Rabbi Lehrfield, and of course the Rebbetzin as well, whose all their children are Talmidei Chachamim and Oiskei B'Torah, and Mamsha Demus for the people that they're around, our Chaver Moshe and all of his brothers. And we've heard Rabbi Yaakov Lehrfield many times, but I think this is the first time actually giving a share in the Kollel in the Space Medrash, so it's a big schos to hear from Rabbi Yaakov Lehrfield. Yishakach is a big Rav in Staten Island, and will Mr. Hashem enlighten us on the sugya of Kibbut Avim. Yishakach.
Rabbi Pleasure, Rabbi Singer, can I give out Mar Makomos? Not you give them out. I got this guy to give them out. I give a class in my shul, and I notice that when people just audio, it's not like visual, it makes it much easier, and I think sheets are good. I don't speak Yiddish. I know that when I give in my shul, it's not enough just to speak. It's also very kedai to give out sheets. Number one, it's audio and visual. You can see it inside. Number two, if you think I'm making something up, it's here. It's all black and white. I didn't make anything up, and it's worthwhile. I want to thank Rabbi Blesh and Rabbi Singer for allowing me to speak. I never spoke here before. We'll see if it goes well, then maybe I'll be invited back. Most likely I won't. So this might be like two, my first and last. When I was 15 years, and my father's Yortzeit is coming up on Pesach Sheni, and my mother wants to make a Shabbos, Le'ilu Nishmas, my father. It is brought down in many Sorim that the Shabbos before the Yortzeit is a very important Shabbos. So part of learning and giving shiurim and doing Kiddush, and my mother, of course, is doing food, because my mother's Mahus is cooking and serving, but she's doing it for my father, so therefore she brought down some of the Lehrfield children to feed and to say shiurim Le'ilu Nishmas, our father. When I was 15 years old, can you hear me in the back? When I was 15 years old, I remember my father learned with me and Aaron. Moshe was already learning in the best medrash. My father was learning with me and Aaron. It was the best charusa shaf in the world because he was never home. So we learned every night, once a week, for an hour. And I remember one night he was busy on the phone. Someone lost his father or his mother, and he was calling my father. When he drives, he needs to put the radio on, otherwise he has road rage. He needs to go to a football game. He was driving my father crazy with all of his questions, and every day there was another shaila about Yud Beis Chodesh. So my father, sometimes he was patient, and sometimes it depends how many questions came. My father looked at me after he hung up, and he says, after 120 years when I pass, I don't want any of my boys keeping Yud Beis Chodesh. I don't want you to keep the Avelis of 12 months. I was 15. I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. I didn't know what Shiva was. I didn't know what Shloshim was. I hate mics. I don't like mics. I don't know what you do here in Shabbos, but in my shul we don't have a mic. I didn't know what he was talking about. We don't keep Shiva. I never learned Avelis. In fact, I never learned Avelis until I became a rabbi. And all of a sudden someone died. I had to do a crash course. So I didn't know what my father wanted when he said, I don't want you to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. That was when I was 15. I heard it again when I was 18. I heard it when I was 19. when I became a rabbi, and my father and I would discuss halachas. So sometimes I would ask him, he would ask me. Someone wants to do something which was not a big deal, but maybe it's Yud Beis Chodesh, you shouldn't do it. Whatever the case was, Shulchan Aruch has a huge discussion. Can an oval of Yud Beis Chodesh go to a Seudas mitzvah? What's a Seudas mitzvah according to the Yam Shlomo? It's anything in the world, basically. And Bava Kama there. So we were discussing it, and he told me over the phone, if you remember, I told you years ago, I don't want you to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. When my father passed away, so some point during Shiva, if we had a minute that was quiet, I mentioned to my brothers, Daddy did not want us to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. So Moshe vaguely remembered hearing it. Aaron vaguely remembered. Binyamin, did you ever hear that from Daddy? And then, believe it or not, I went to Rabbi Selmar, who spent, I don't know how many hours, weeks, months, years with my father. And I said, did you ever hear my father mention it? Because I don't think I'm making it up. So Rabbi Selmar said, not just did he tell it to me, he made a Beis Din. He made a Beis Din, and in front of a Beis Din, he says, I am mitzvah my children not to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. I have no idea, and neither do you. Tell me what a Beis Din makes a chalos on that. Eidim maybe, even Eid Achad would be enough. He made a Beis Din. So during Shiva, I mentioned this to my brothers. They were not relieved that they don't have to keep Yud Beis Chodesh, because you want to keep it. They just wanted to know what this halacha is. So I took it upon myself, together with Aaron and Moshe and Binyamin and Eli and Eretz Yisrael, to research the sugya. So I researched it 3 years ago. It's the third Yortzei coming up. I've never given it, and I'd like to give you a share tonight on Yud Beis Chodesh. Okay? And we'll see if my father was right, or ois gehalten or not, and what we should have done, what anyone should do, which is you'll see it's very interesting. Number one, please, everyone have a sheet, I hope? Everyone have a sheet? If I didn't make enough, share. It says in number one, Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Ibaylahu, Hespeda Yikar de Chaye Havi, or Yikar de Shichvi Havi. When someone dies, we always have Hespedim. I'm not getting involved in Rosh Chodesh or Chol HaMoed. On a normal day, when you say Tachanun, there are Hespedim. So the Gemara is a Shaila, when you give a Hesped, is it to honor the one that passed, or is it to honor the children? The one that passed, of course, it makes sense, is a hesped for the one that passed. And you speak out a hesped all about the one that passed. Wonderful person, wonderful mother, wife, whatever the case might be, you speak about them. What does it mean that you carry the chaye, the children that are left? If you speak so nicely about the one that passed, they get a lot of covered from there. You also mention the children, like Rabbi Singer made up and said that Rabbi Lehrfield's children are good. We know that is a guzma, but whatever it is, you can get a lot of covet. So the Gemara wants to know, when you give a hesped, is it for the mace to make him look good, or is it for the children that they should look good? That's the Gemara Shaila. L'maynaf gemina, what's the difference? We do it anyway. The Omer lotis bedua lahahu gavra. A man before he dies says to the family and says to his close friends, after 120 years, when I pass, I do not want a hesped. I don't want a hesped. He's mitzvah of them. I don't want a hesped. So the Gemara says, "Inami lafukim yorshin." Let's pretend he didn't. Let's pretend he says, "I don't want a hesped," and then or he says, "I want a hesped," and he has children. Who pays for it? Who pays for it? If it's for the father, so then they have to pay for it, because even though a father left over Yerusha, he only leaves over Yerusha. That's free money. That's open money. But if the children are chayiv, they give him cover by having a hesped, so part of the Yerusha is not free. They have to pay for the hesped. Whether you're bringing in a gadol, what the Gemara speaks about in Sanhedrin and Moed Katan, they would hire people to cry. They would have to pay for it. So the Gemara gives an afkamina. The Gemara's maskana, hands down, no one argues, is that the reason why you have a hesped is for what reason? To give cover to the one that passed away. Fine. So if someone is giving a hesped, you want to praise the children, that's great. But the focus should be on the one that passed, because the Gemara Paskins here, the hesped is for the ones that passed. There's a very well-known Gemara in Brachos, Yud Chesam Abeis. The Gemara wants to know the exact words are. Got to get the right page. The exact words of the Gemara is. Gemara Brachas Yud Chesam Abeis. Meisim Yodim or Lo Yodim. When someone dies, do they have any idea once they pass what goes on with the family and in this world? Gemara's a shaila, Mesim Yodim and Velo Yodim. And it's a blot long. And they have phenomenal rayas there. Shmuel's father died, and Shmuel's father left over money. He wanted to know, can Shmuel speak to him, not speak to him? It's a phenomenal Gemara. And the Gemara's maskana doesn't give an answer, but the Gemara discusses when someone dies, do they know what goes on or not? They're now in another world, so do they know what's going on? Rav Lopian and the Mich of Miliyahu, Rav Desru both say, it's not do they know or they don't know. The question is, do they care? It's not that when a husband dies, he doesn't care about his wife, or a mother doesn't care about the children. But they're so busy finding their spot in Olam Haba. They're so busy waiting for Kadosh Baruch Hu to judge them. They're now in a much better place. They're in a real world. So do they care what they left behind or not? So the Gesher Chaim of Tukachinsky has a question. If the Gemara says they don't care anymore, so why does the Gemara paskin here that the whole point of a hesped is to give cover to the one that passed? They don't care anymore. So the Gesher Chaim says a remarkable thing. Gesher Chaim says the only time they don't care anymore is when they're in the ground and they begin to ikul habasar. How do you say it in English? Decompose. When they begin to decompose. But until they decompose, they hear everything, they know everything, and they care about everything. And therefore, the Gemara here says that even though they died, and usually once the body decomposes, they don't care anymore because they're in a much better place. But until that point, the Gemara says the reason why you give a hesped is to give cover to the one that passed. Gemara said, if you remember in number 1, what's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is the one that passes away, says, I don't want a hesped. I don't want a hesped. So if the whole point of a hesped is give cover to the children, so the mace has no right to tell the children not to have a hesped. But if the whole point of a hesped is to give him kavod, if a person says, I don't want kavod anymore, I don't want any of this stuff, so you're mitzvah to listen to him. So how do we pass? And look at number 2, please. Yorshim she'enam rotzim lifroa schar hespedan. Motziin mehem bal korchan. If the children don't want to give a hesped, you take money from them. Why do you take money from them? Because they're chayiv to give a hesped, because the whole point of a hesped is to give cover to the father. The Shach says, Motziin mehen. Why do you take money from them? The hesped yikara the shichva. The reason you give a hesped is because of the father. Umitam zeh shomim lo kisha omer al tispedu. So if the father says, or the mother says, I don't want you to have hespedim, since it's all for the one that passed, if they say, I don't want it, you are chayiv to listen to them, and there's no hespedim. The Ber Hatif says in number 4, Kasav Hashach v'davkim yarshu hamamon. The only time you take money from them is if they have Yerusha. What's the svara? The svara is if they were Yorish money, if the father wants a hesped, so that means they were not Yorish X amount of money because it's his and he deserves a hesped. And it says and that's how we paskin, and that's all good. So when someone dies, you give a hesped, but if the one that passed says, I do not want a hesped, what's the din? You do not give a hesped. Okay, now, look at number 5, please. Shulchan Aruch says, Mishet tziva shelo yispeduhu shomim lo. If someone dies, and they tell their family before they died, I do not want a hesped, what's the din? You are obligated to listen to them, because the reason you have a hesped is to give kavod to them. If they say they don't want the kavod, then you are chayiv to listen to them. That is exactly from the Gemara number 1, so the Shulchan Aruch took it exactly from the Gemara. Along comes the Ramah. Haga, whenever there's Haga, means the Ramah. The Ramah writes in number 5, Haga, Avalim tziva shelo linhog olav zayin ugzera shloshim ein shomim lo. The whole Gemara, is this being videoed? Do you care if I walk around? Tough. The whole Gemara speaks about a hesped. It didn't speak about if the father said, I do not want you to sit shiva or shloshim. The Gemara did not speak about avelis. All it spoke about was giving a hesped. So along comes the Ramah, and he says that even though by a hesped we paskin, that if the father says, I don't want, you don't give it. However, if the father says, tziva shelo linog alav zayin gzera shloshim, if the father says, I don't want you to sit shiva, and I don't want you to keep shloshim, even though regarding a hesped, we paskin the father that says, do not do it, we listen to him, and you're not allowed to give a hesped, that's only regarding hespedim, but not avelis. Gemara did not speak about avelis. The Ramah made this up. Where does the Ramah get it from? So please look, he quotes the Rav Weil, who happened to be the posek in Germany in 1400. Ramah was 1500. So we bring Shoot Mariel Weil in number 6, and he says, Isha shetzivsa livnoseha shalolisa hasarba arosham. In Germany, the custom was when the daughter was sitting shiva for her father or for her mother, they used to wear some bonnet on their head to show they're navelis. I don't know what it looks like. I don't care what it looks like. There was a minig in Germany when someone was sitting shiva and shloshim, the women wore a special type of a hat on their head. So the mother said to the daughters, when I pass away, or when daddy passes away, I do not want you to wear that funny looking hat on your head that everyone knows you're sitting shiva or shloshim. I don't want to do it. So the Mariel Vial says, Hadas machras, shabanu shikaimu mashitzifsa, they have to listen to the mother, and even though they might feel funny because all of their friends, when they were sitting shiva, wore that bonnet, here the mother says, don't wear it, they have to listen to the mother. Midi the havi amisha tziva alti spedeni, the same way a father and mother can say, I don't want a hesped, and you're chayiv to listen to them. So same thing over here, even the spedi yakar the shchiva, the reason why they wear the bonnet is because they want to give honor to their mother or father that passed. If the father and mother say, don't wear the bonnet, they don't wear it. V'hachanami, la'achar lamed ad yud beis, once they kept shiva and shloshim, lo havi ele mishum yakara shel ha'em, v'ha'em shemachal al kvoda kvoda machal. He says, shiva and shloshim, I don't care what the father and mother say, you have to keep. You have to keep shiva and shloshim. We'll see the difference in a second. But if a father and a mother say, and this goes to 1400, if the father and mother say, I don't want you to keep from shloshim to yud beis chodesh, the din is, Mario Vial says, you listen to them and you don't keep yud beis chodesh. That's the Mario Vial. Avol toch lamed kivin ashar mesim nami misablim, but for shiva and shloshim, you sit shiva and shloshim not just for father and mother, you sit shiva and shloshim for everybody. So he makes a chiluk, a brilliant chiluk. Shiva and shloshim, why do you keep shiva and shloshim? If you keep it for everybody, because that's the din of Eilis. Keeping Yud Beis Chodesh, which is only for parents, is based on what halacha? Kibud, Av, Ve'em. So if the father and the mother say, we do not want Yud Beis Chodesh, you listen to him. That is what he says. Now, he says, and he brings a raya. Now he says, where I underlined and highlighted, Lo nizbar li yihavi yikara de chaye ve'ena yachol limchol, or yikara de shichva hu ve'yachol limchol. He says, even though from 30 until Yud Beis Chodesh is only for kavod av ve'em, and therefore they could be mochel, and the Mario Var you could be mochel, but shiv and shloshim, he says, I don't know, lo nizbar li, if you keep shiv and shloshim, are you doing it to show kavod to the father that passed, or are you doing it because people should visit you, and you get kavod when they visit you? He's not sure. Hesped, the Gemara Paschal says, for what reason? To give kavod to a father. Yud Beis Chodesh is to give kavod to a father. He's not sure. Shiv and Shloshim, is it for the live people to give them honor, or is it for the one that passed? He's not sure. Okay, so the Ramah in number 5, when he says where father and mother say, do not keep Shiv and Shloshim, you must listen to them. Does the Ramah talk about Yud Beis Chodesh? He doesn't talk about it. He talks about Shiv and Shloshim. For some reason, he omits Yud Beis Chodesh, but if he quotes the Mario Var, he obviously knew it. Okay, please look at number 7 for a minute. There's a famous story I heard when I was learning in Bes Medrash. Famous story that I heard, that when the Pnei Yeshua died, he left over a tzava. And what did the Pnei Yeshua write in his tzava? Do not be maspid me. No one, not a word. Pnei Yeshua wrote that in his tzava, in his will. I do not want any espedim. The Nodeb Yehuda saw the tzava, and the Nodeb Yehuda said, tough luck. Even though the Gemara says that a father or mother could, and they say, we don't want it, you're not allowed to be maspid them, because it's for their kavod, and they don't want the kavod, they don't want it. In fact, the Gemara says if they don't want it, it's probably good for them, because it might go to their head. It's good not to give them so much kavod. It's better for olam haba that they don't have all the kavod. And we paskin that way, but it says that along comes the Pischei Tshuva, number 7, that if a gadol hador dies, and he writes down black on white, I do not want any hespedim, the Nodeb Yehuda gave a hesped. So they said to him, how could you do that? A father could be mochel. The Pnei Yeshua, we're not even his children. If he writes, I don't want it, of course you have to listen to him. So the Nodeb Yehuda has a long tshuva brought down in number 7 here. He has a long tshuva that when a gadol dies, there's so much we can learn from his life There's so much Kiddush Shem Shemaim that we can learn from the one that passed. It's not fair. Or in Yiddish, Kenizan Azazach, you can't just let it go like nothing. When the Gadol passes, you have to learn from them, and therefore he went against the tzivoy of the Pnei Yeshua, and he gave a hesped. Fascinating. If you look in the Svarim on Avelis, they go to town saying, was the Nod of Yehuda right? Was the Nod of Yehuda wrong? They all talk about it. I know nowadays many Gedolim pass away. Rav Steinman passed away. The most simple man in the world. He said on my matzeva, all I want you to put is my name and put down, learn Mishnayos for me, and I was a simple man. Did they give a spading for him? So we always, and they say, why? Because the Nod of Yehuda did it for the Pnei Yeshua, so we could also do it. It's an interesting shaila. But anyway, it's interesting that even though a father and a mother, if they tell their children, I don't want a spadim, you're not allowed to give them. You're not allowed to give a hesped if a father says no. By a Gadol Ador, the Nod of Yehuda broke with the Gemara, whatever svar he gave, which is very interesting. Okay, now, our Father told us on numerous occasions, I don't want you to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. The Ramah doesn't talk about that. The Mario Weil says, since the whole reason of Yud Beis Chodesh is to give covet to mother and father, if the mother and father say no, you listen to them. That is what Mario Weil poskin. Ramah doesn't talk about it. Gemara doesn't talk about Avelis. The Gemara only speaks about Hesped. Along comes the Shach. This is a Shach. I didn't make it up. Black and white, Shach and Shulchan Aruch, you can see, Ein Shomim Lo. You don't listen to a father and mother if they say, don't keep Shiv and Shloshim. Aval Tzivam Ha'av Ha'em Shelo Linog Behem Yud Beis Chodesh. What happens if mom or dad said, I don't want you to keep 12 months? Exactly like our father told us, don't keep Yud Beis Chodesh. You want to go to a wedding when Shloshim is over? Go. You want to go to a Heat game or a Dolphin game or do anything you want? Go. You want to listen to music in the car? Geig is unterheit. My father said, don't keep Shloshim. So the Shach says, black on white, if the father says, do not keep Yud Beis Chodesh, Kivan de'eno shayach b'shar mesim, since by other mesim there's no shiva, there's no Yud Beis Chodesh, Eino ela b'chvod avaim, the whole reason why you have to do it is to keep it avaim, Mitzvah l'kayim divrayim, you have to listen to them, and therefore you do not keep Yud Beis Chodesh. So that which my father told us, I don't want you to keep Yud Beis Chodesh, it's not a chiddush, it's not in some obscure sefer, it is a shach, black and white. Mario Weil, you say you don't know who he is, even though he was the father of all Ashkenaz Psak, but you quote a shach, black and white, says you do not keep Yud Beis Chodesh, it's a beferish shach. Now, look at the Lavush at number 9. Umitam zeh, Seif Yud, the Lavush in Shulchan Aruch, Seif Yud. Umitam zeh, the Hesped Yikar, the Shichva, the whole reason why you give a Hesped is to give cover to the one that died. Misha Metzav Shelo Yispedu, if a father says, I don't want a Hesped, show me low, because no reason why you have Hesped is to give the father covered. If the father says, I don't want, you listen to him, you have to listen to him, because he thinks you'll get more Olam Haba. If you don't praise him, you have to listen to him. However, if he says do not keep Shiv and Shloshim, you do not listen to him. You have to keep Shiv and Shloshim. The elu mitzvahs derabanan v'lav kol kamin. If a father says don't keep Shiv and Shloshim, you don't listen to him. What's the difference? The hesped is for his kavod. Shiv and Shloshim, the Lavush makes up where he got it from. We'll see in a minute. He makes up. Why do you keep Shiv and Shloshim? What's the svar behind it? It's the mitzvah derabanan, and the father has no right to abolish a mitzvah derabanan. Just hold on to that. We'll see what that means. And you could ask Rosh Hashivas, where do we get this mitzvah derabanan from for Shiv and Shloshim? First day we know, but he says it's the mitzvah, and the father has no right to abolish a mitzvah. Now look at the Shvus Yaakov, please. The Reish Rav. Look, Bechat Shaya Kollel, Nota Lamu. Someone is in a deathbed, and they're going to die in a few days. Vitziva Lasos Nesuim Lebito Umesavia. His daughter's engaged. One of the worst questions a rabbi is going to get. One of the worst questions he gets. Someone is marrying off a son or a daughter, and God forbid a grandfather or one of the parents dies. What do you do with the chassan and kala? You already paid for the photographer, you paid for the hall. The wedding, does it go on? Well, they're not allowed to go on because it's shiva. What are you supposed to do? So the father, he had a daughter that was engaged, supposed to get married in a day or two. He knew he might die in a day or two, so he tells his daughter, I want you to get married. Even if I die, I want you to get married. So she gets married. The chassan is over. She's with her husband for a day, and then the father dies. Does she go on with Sheva brachas, or does she have to sit Shiva for her father? She gets married on Sunday night. Father dies Monday morning. The Levaya is Monday afternoon. Does she go to the Levaya and sit Shiva or not? So the Shush Yaakov Paskins, she doesn't go to the Levaya. She's usher to go to the Levaya because since father was mochel and told her don't do it, now you're going to say to me, this is Shiva, this is the Levaya. We only were speaking about Yud Beis Chodesh where the Shach says the father could be mochel. And don't forget the Levush wrote, word for word, a father can never stop Shiva and Shloshim because it's a mitzvah and he has no right to stop it. The Shush Yaakov says that since he writes and says, even though I know the Mario Viola number 6 says that you can't abolish Shiv and Shloshim, he writes and says, V'afagav shelo nelam v'suma shekosamar. He brings down the Mario Viola. He says that's because ein shomim lo mishum safek davi yikar techai. Because the Mario Viola thinks you can't break Shiv and Shloshim because that is covered for the living. Mikol makom haidina lo brirli. He doesn't agree. The Vadai, 3 lines from the bottom. The Shvush Yaakov says, the Vadai kol avela zayin v'lamed hu yikara the shechvi. Why do you keep Shiv and Shloshim and Yud Beis Chodesh, all of it, and Hesped? He says everything you do, the Hesped, sitting Shiva, Shloshim, Yud Beis Chodesh, is for one reason. What's the reason? They give cover to mom and dad that passed away. And he pasking this way. And he brings a raya, Sharei Mehai Taima, ha-ma'abed atzmo ladas ein kan avelis. What does ma'abed atzmo ladas mean? Someone commits suicide. Nowadays, when someone commits suicide, most times we say this halacha is not applicable. In those days, when someone committed suicide, they did it because it was a shita. Whatever they thought they were accomplishing. Now, most times that God forbid someone commits suicide, why do they do it? They have demons in their head. They're schizophrenic. They are bipolar. Something happened. So most psychiatrists say that most normal people will not do it b'shita. They do it because something is bothering them. And the poskim, kimat, all of them, go with that halacha. And every once in a while, you will hear that someone's dead. They're 15, they're 18, they're 20. They usually never tell you it was a suicide. They usually don't tell you. So if someone dies young and you don't hear why, very often, it's because of a suicide. So every once in a while it happens, and someone calls me up, why was there a levaya, why were there spadim? I understood it's a suicide. So first of all, I tell them, it's none of your business, that's A. B, you're not the rabbi. And third of all, you don't know that the poskim say nowadays when someone commits suicide, it's not b'shita. Why do they do it? Because they have demons. Something bothers them. Something is wrong with them. And therefore, it's not the same as it was in those days. But in those days, when someone committed suicide, you buried them, because you're chayiv to bury them, midaraisa, you're chayiv. But it says in halacha, Shulchan Aruch, Shin Mem Hey, after the levaya, there's no avelis. The family does not sit. If you say that Shiv and Shloshim is for the one that passed, so what should the din be? There's no Shiv and Shloshim. He doesn't deserve the covet. He committed suicide in those days. But if the reason why you have Shiv and Shloshim is to help the family, who cares that he committed suicide? That person is a shlechter. He committed suicide. But you should come to visit me, Shiv and Shloshim. I still lost somebody. And since Shulchan Aruch says that by Shiva and Shloshim, there's nothing by Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, from there, what can you deduce? That the reason why I keep Shiv and Shloshim is for who? Is for the one that passed, and that is the raya of the Shvus Yaakov. And he holds it very fast. He holds on to it completely. Now, with this being said, we know that a hesped is covered for who? The mace. Shiv and Shloshim, the Mario Weil is not sure who it's for. The Levush says it's the Mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Along comes the Shvus Yaakov and says black on white, and he brings a raya from Abed Atzma Ladas that you're not allowed to have any avelis. It must be that Shiv and Shloshim is not for the live people, not for the children that are with parents. It is for the one that passed. So according to the Shvus Yaakov, the same way a hesped is covered for the one that passed, same thing with Shiva, Shloshim, and Yud Beis Chodesh. That's how he paskins, which happens to be fascinating. The Rambam paskins. By the way, this is in Maseches Smachos. It says there's no Gemara about this. It's Maseches Smachos. It says if someone commits suicide, so it says in Maseches Smachos, you bury them, and there's no availus. That's what it doesn't say. It says you don't rip kriya, and you don't do shua, you don't do a lot of things. The Rambam adds to that Mishnah in Smachos, the Rambam says, ve'ein misablim olav. That's the way the Rambam paskins. So according to the Rambam, it's black on white that the reason why you have Shiv and Shloshim is to give cover to the one that died. So if someone commits suicide, you don't give him cover, and therefore there's no Shiv and Shloshim. The Rambam says, Ein misablim. The Ramban says, there is Shiv and Shloshim. Rambam says, why is there no Avelis, Shiv and Shloshim? Because the reason why you have it is covered for the mace. He doesn't deserve cover. He committed suicide in those days. Ramban says in Torah Adam that you do sit Shiv and Shloshim. Why? Because he paskins. Everyone wake up. Why does the Ramban say that you go to Shiv and Shloshim? There were no espedim. Hesped is for the covered amesim. He doesn't deserve covered. But the Ramban says you have to sit Shiva and Shloshim. Why? Because Shiv and Shloshim is not for the one that died, it's for the family. And therefore the Ramban and the Rambam argue black on white. So even though we've been discussing now Shiv and Shloshim, is it covered for the one that died or covered for the family? Hesped is for the one that died. Shiv and Shloshim is a machlokes rishonim. So even though the Mariel Val says, I'm not sure what to do, if he knew, and he does know because he knew Kollel Terakula, if he would have written a little bit longer, he would have said, I'm not sure because it's the machlokes rishonim. Rambam says black on white, Avela Shiv and Shloshim is for the one that died, and if you commit suicide, you don't get it. And the Ramban says, you're chayiv Shiv and Shloshim. You raising your hand? Why don't we just wait? I'll get there. I'll get there. Going to a Jet game? Is that what you asked me? Going to a Jet game is always a bizayon. Going to Miami, Tua is not as good as you think he is. It's also bizayon. When I was growing up, we had Bob Greasy and Paul Lehrfield and Larry Zonka. That was a big thing. Nowadays, since I was 14, Dolphins have been losing every single year. There's nothing there. That's also bizayon to go through. Okay, you want to watch Patrick Mahomes? That would be a lot of fun. Okay, we'll talk about sports games versus going to a wedding, going to a Broadway play, going to a movie.
The thrust of my question is really, if people don't know that your father gave you this...
So why don't we wait, and if you want to cheat, go look at number 15. Look at number 15. Look at number 15. By the way, when I give a class, I do cover everything. If you let me get there, just number 15, cheat and look ahead. Just don't quote it to me before I get there, because that's really cheating. Along comes the Tshuva Mi'ava. The Tshuva Mi'ava, and he quotes the Shvus Yaakov, that Shiv and Shloshim is like the Rambam, which means it's covered for who? The one that died. His raya is from suicide, where the Rambam says there's no Avelis, so it must be it's for the one that died, he doesn't deserve it. He quotes the Shvus Yaakov from beginning to end. Turn the page over, everybody. He quotes it from beginning to end. And then in the fourth line, he says, Tama Ani, which means in English, I can't believe that the Shvus Yaakov would write that. He can't believe it. Because in his mind, and he writes black on white, Avelis, Shiva, and Shloshim is for the family. So how in the world could the Shvus Yaakov say that the Mariel Vial is not right because he's mistapek, and the Ramah writes and says that Shiv and Shloshim, you don't listen to a father, so the Ramah writes black on white that Shiv and Shloshim is for who? Is for the children, and that's why a father has no right to say don't keep it. It's not for him, it's for the children. So along comes the Tshuva Mi'ava, and he says, I don't understand how the Shvus Yaakov could take on his shoulders and say that Shiv and Shloshim is only for the one that died like Hesped. I don't understand where he got it from. And he brings rayas back and forth, and he says it's avada and avada, it's for the living, and therefore a father cannot be abolished. And he says that the Shvus Yaakov was wrong in his psak, and he brings it all down. Along comes the Pischei Tshuva. Pischei Tshuva brings down the Tshuva Mi'ava versus the Shvus Yaakov, and it boils down to Hesped is covered for who? The one that passed. Shiv and Shloshim is covered for who? Machlokes Rishonim. Rambam says it's for the one that passed, and the raya is from Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, that you don't do anything. And the Ramban says absolutely wrong. It is for the ones that are living. It's the Machlokus Rishonim black on white, and they paskin accordingly. Pischei Tshuva brings it all down. Doesn't paskin, he brings down both sides, and he leaves it like that. I want to show you a most remarkable Rebbe Kiveger. Number 13. He brings down Mariel Weil, first line. And he quotes him and says, Lo nizbarali, yikara dechaya, yikara deshichvi. And Mariel Weil says the father cannot be mochel on it, because it might not be his to be mochel. It might be like the Ramban says, for the children. So the Mariel Weil is not sure. And now he says, fifth line, Tama ani. He says, I'm amazed. By the way, Rebbe Kiveger has a great sense of humor, because he says Tamani, he's quoting the same way Tamani that the Tshuva Miyava writes. He says, I'm amazed. He says, I'm amazed. The Hadavar Zeh Machlokas Rabbeinu. What's the whole question back and forth, Shiv and Shloshim? It's an af and ord, it's a black and white, Machlokas Rishonim. Rambam says, by Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, there's no Shiv and no Shloshim, because the whole reason is to give cover to the one that died. We don't want to give him cover. He committed suicide. Ramban says no, even though he's a shlechter, but the children deserve to have covered. So therefore, he said this Machlokas Rishonim, and now he has the following shaila. The Shulchan Aruch says, and he quotes the Shulchan Aruch. He quotes the Shulchan Aruch and says, and he quotes the Rambam, and the Shulchan Aruch follows the Rambam. Rambam says, Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, if someone commits suicide, what's the din? You're not allowed to keep Shiva or Shloshim. So the Rambam writes, and he paskins black on white. Rambam paskins how? That Shiv and Shloshim is covered for the one that died, and if you commit suicide, you don't deserve it. And then he quotes, the Ramban quotes them both. Shulchan Aruch paskins how? Regarding the machlokas Rambam and Ramban. Like the Rambam. Mechaber brings down the Rambam. If someone is Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, what's the din? No Hespedim, no Shiv and no Shloshim. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins exactly like the Rambam. What does the Ramah say on that halacha, that you don't keep Shiv and Shloshim by Ma'abed Atzma Ladas? Ramah doesn't say a word. If the Ramah does not say a word on the Shulchan Aruch, what do we deduce from there? That he agrees. So from the din of Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, which is the raya from all of them, and that's the Rambam's raya, and everyone's raya, the Mishnah and Smachos, even though the Ramban argues, but the Shulchan Aruch says there's no Shiv and Shloshim. Ramah doesn't say a word. He follows the Shulchan Aruch, who follows the Ramban. The Torah doesn't learn like the Rambam. The Torah says there is Avela Shiv and Shloshim by Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, and the Beis Yosef on that Torah says, why is the Torah arguing? So he says very simply, because the Torah follows the Ramban. And therefore, if you follow the Ramban, there is Shiv and Shloshim, because the reason why you sit Shiv and Shloshim is to give cover to the Yisomim. We want to make them feel good. It's a mitzvah. You go do Menachem Avelim. It's for them. And so the Torah says the reason why the Shulchan Aruch says that you don't visit Shiv and Shloshim, because he learns like the Rambam. The Torah passes like the Ramban. So along comes Rebbe Kiveger and says, I don't care that the Mariel Weil is mechalik between Shiva, Shloshim, and Yud Beis Chodesh. Shiva and Shloshim, he says, it's for the ones left behind. Yud Beis Chodesh is only for father and mother, because you only find it by father and mother. He says that's fine. But the Ramah is Soser himself. Why is the Ramah Soser himself? Because the Ramah says, by Ma'abed Atzma Ladas, what does he say? Like the Rambam, black on white, it's covered for the ones that are left behind, covered for the one that died. So how does the Ramah quote the Mariel Weil that says Shiv and Shloshim? If the father says don't do it, you listen to him, that means who's it covered for? The ones that are alive. That means the Ramah is Soser himself, and he leaves the Ramah Sarach Iyun. He doesn't know how the Ramah can do it. And he says he's Mama Soser himself. And it's a very fascinating shaila. If you keep Shiv and Shloshim, is that covered for the ones that are living or the one that died? Hesped, we know, is for the dead. Yud Beis Chodesh is for who? It's for the father and mother, for the one that died. But Shiv and Shloshim is a machlokus rishonim. And the Ramah is contradicting himself between Ma'abed Atzma Ladas and between a father that says do not keep Shiv and Shloshim, he leaves it Sarachin. Number 14. Huh? If you look at the Levush well, he doesn't even bring covered for Chaim Mason. The Levush says, why do you have to do it? Because it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. No one knows what he's talking about. And if you have a minute and you read Rebbe Kiveger says that reason is mamish above a Maisa because it's based on nothing. Give a look at Rebbe Kiveger. Okay? I don't want to get there because I have to finish in about 4 or 5 minutes, so I need to go on. But look, Rebbe Kiveger does not like that at all. Now, number 14, he brings a Gevaldik Shayla. A father, he says, is a super firm guy. So firm, he even wears Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. Super firm guy. And he has a son that's very modern. So he tells his son in Yiddish, look at number 14, the first line. By the way, I don't speak Yiddish, so even though I'm going to read it, pretend I understand it. Ich bafri dich von Zogen Kaddish I Morgen. He tells his son, when I die, I don't want you to say Kaddish in the morning. Why would he say that to his son, don't say Kaddish in the morning? Because the son sleeps late. The son needs to get to work. He wants his son to say Kaddish at Mincha Marg. He doesn't want to make him wake up early. So he tells his son, Ich bin Meichel sein, which means in English, I don't want to bother you with Kaddish in the morning. Don't worry about it. That is what the father says. He brings another case where the father was a Kalta Litvak, 100%. His son went off the derech and became Hasidish. And he says in his Kaddish, V'yatzmech b'kornei v'karev mishiche. So the father says, if that's what you say Kaddish, I don't want it. I don't want it. I'd rather you not say. So we have two cases where the father says to the son, don't say Kaddish for me. So the Chelkas Yaakov says, which is fascinating, he says, if the father would be mitzavet, don't say it, maybe you should listen. But here, he didn't say don't say it. What did he say? I don't want to bother you in the morning. I don't want to bother you. So he writes and says, that's not mechila. Means I don't want to bother you. So he writes to the son and says, of course you have to say it, because if the father said don't do it, he didn't say don't do it. He wants you to do it. But it's hard for you because you sleep late. So therefore he says you should definitely do it. He says a great line, by the way, the third paragraph, 3 lines before number 15. The Gemara in Brachas, I think it's Chav Vav or Chav Daled, has a machlokas, who was Masakein Shemon Esrei? Who was Masakein Shachris Mincha Mariv? So the Gemara's lashon is Tfilos, Avos, Tiknun. He gives a new pshat. What does it mean? Many people never go to shul. When do they start going to shul? To say Kaddish. So Tfilos, Avim, Tiknun, the only reason why you go to shul is to say Kaddish. He says that's the vort, which is true. They also say, by the way, in my shul, Avelim love to daven for the Amud. So the joke is, your father made you into an Avel. He didn't make you into a Chazan. So he says, and he says, Kaddish is so important. It brings the neshama up. So unless the father said, Beferish, don't do it, there's no Havamim that you should skip it. Because you have no idea what Kaddish does to our father. If the father was mitzvah you, Pem Malay, don't do it, we'll talk. But since he wasn't, and he really wants it, just because you're lazy, you don't want to go to shul, tough luck, you have to do it because Kaddish is one of the most holy things in the world. Look at number 15. We'll be finished in 3 minutes. Number 15. The Darchei Chaim doesn't get involved in the Ramban and the Rambam, who argue on Shiva and Shloshim. Is it covered l'shichvi for the ones that died, or l'chaya? He doesn't get involved. He's only speaking about Yud Beis Chodesh. Everyone agrees, and it's a shach, black and white. No one argues. Yud Beis Chodesh is for one reason. What's the reason? Covered for the parents. And hence the shach says, if the parent says don't do it, you don't do it. No one argued on Yud Beis Chodesh. Because if it was really a din and hilchos avelis, you would also have it for a wife and children. It's only for a father. So everyone agrees with the shach. Yud Beis, even the Mariel Vial, only was mistapik and Shiv and Shloshim. Who are you doing it for? But Yud Beis Chodesh, everyone agrees it's for a father. Look what he writes. In the back, you ready? This is for you. Av oem she'amr libneim shelo yizablu aleim yosim yishloshim yom, which we call Yud Beis Chodesh. Ain't tzarich lisabo yoser. You don't have to keep it. The mitzvah l'kaim v'yameis, because everyone agrees that Yud Beis Chodesh is for who? The one that passed, and they said don't do it. Umutarim likanes le'achol al kol simcha, and you can go to the jet game, and you can go to the watch tour, make a fool of himself. You can do all of that stuff. Why? Because mom and dad said, don't keep Yud Beis Chodesh. Ach, tzrichim lodia la'anoshon nimtzor mehem. If God forbid, someone loses a father, and they go to a wedding, or they have music in their car, or they do something fun, people are going to say, he doesn't care about his father, doesn't care about his mother, he's an oizvarf. He says, you don't have to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. Just let people know that your father told you, or your mother told you not to keep Yud Beis Chodesh, otherwise it's Marasayan. L'daiti, this is unbelievable. L'daiti, she mitzvah lefarsem bizmanenu zehadin. Bizman is there, where I and every rabbi get questions around the clock. A jet game I can go to because they stink. But Patrick Mahomes is coming, that's going to give you that simcha. Or there's a Mitzvah, that's mitzvah, whatever the case, Hafnas Sefer Torah. The questions we get are so bothersome. He says, if a father and a mother say, don't keep Yud Beis Chodesh, we pass from like Peshach, and he says every father and every mother should do what? Tell their children not to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. Why? Then they'll never be over kibbut av v'aim, because they said not to do it. And he says mitzvah lefarsem davar zeh bizman zeh, and that's how he paskins. V'av v'aim o avoim imachlu lahem lo yikashelu. I won't get my questions. No one will do anything wrong, and that's how he paskins black on white. You know what this means? It means, wait a minute. Along comes the Stei Chemed. Stei Chemed lived in Yerushalayim, voluminous. What he wrote is unbelievable. And the Stei Chemed says the most remarkable thing. And we'll end with this. The Stei Chemed says, when a father says, don't keep Yud Beis Chodesh, and my father told us, don't keep Yud Beis Chodesh. Why did he say that? Because the man back there was going to ask me about the Jets, and ask me about the Miami Heat, and they're going to ask music in the car. It causes me tsar not to do these things, and a father and a mother don't want you to have tsar, and they don't want you to be nichshal in doing things. And therefore, if a father and mother say, do not keep Yud Beis Chodesh, mitzvah lefarsim b'dor hazeh, tell every father and mother, you should tell your children not to keep. However, along comes the Stei Chemed and says, when it comes to Kaddish, you think of father when he said, and our father told us, don't keep Yud Beis Chodesh, he meant, don't say Kaddish, don't daven for the Amud, or he meant, don't go through the tsar of holding back from going to a wedding of a friend or having a simcha. What did our father mean when he said it? So the Stei Chemed writes, it's a davar pashut, except in number 14, where he says, you got to get to work, or you're saying the Yatzma Pakorne, but everyone says Kaddish, which is the most important thing you can do for someone that passes. It brings up their neshama. You never skip a day for 11 months. It's unbelievable. So the Stei Chemed says this whole thing that we discussed was tsa'ar, in afflicting yourself by keeping Yud Beis Chodesh. But when it comes to Kaddish, he says it is the most davar pashut in the world. Father never had a havamina of saying such a thing, and you're chayiv to say Kaddish. And then the question is as follows, and I want you to think about this. A father says, don't say Kaddish. Don't keep Yud Beis Chodesh. Don't keep it. And now you have a son that's Toch Yud Beis Chodesh, and he wants to daven for the Amud. He's Yud Beis Chodesh. There's two more people that are Yud Beis Chodesh. If a father says to a son, don't daven for me and don't say Kaddish, according to many people, he didn't mean that. And then when he gets to Shamayim, he definitely wants you to say it. So if a father says don't do it, is it chal? And therefore I have no din of Yud Beis Chodesh. And do I get the Amud now against another Yud Beis Chodesh? No, why not? Because father told me not to. But the Stei Chemed says, no one's going to paskin like that, because in Olam Ha'emes, the father wants Kaddish and wants you to daven. And therefore a nafkamina would be if a father would actually say, I don't want you to keep Yud Beis Chodesh or Kaddish, is he still called a bar chiyuva that he could displace another Yud Beis Chodesh and get the Amud or not? That is a phenomenal shayla. Exactly what did dad and father mean? I know with us, and he told me many times, and according to many people, he actually convened the Beis Din to tell us not to keep Yud Beis Chodesh. I know it was pashut. It was about going to the games and going to a movie. I don't watch movies. Whatever you want to do, going to weddings. He said, I don't want to put you through that. You should be able to live your life. However, when it came to Kaddish Avad, I wanted. And therefore, when it comes to Yud Beis Chodesh, and there's another Aval there that wants it and says to me, your father told you no, what can I tell him? He only told me no regarding tsar, things that afflict me, my father didn't want that. But to do things positive for him, avad and avada, Dad wants it. I think Moshe and Aaron did keep Yud Beis Chodesh. I didn't. Not just because my father said no, it's because I'm a rabbi, and I have 4 or 5 weddings a week. But when I go, I hate them. I have a Kabbalah from my father. Go late, leave early, as fast as you could, and just bear through it. I go, I work. I
always have a safer. Your father always had a safer.
He always had a safer, but I'll be better. I just leave. Or I do other stuff. I'm a rabbi. I don't enjoy anything. My son's getting married in exactly a month. I don't know if I'm going to stay there. I'm machmir, like my father. My father told us, do not keep Yud Beis Chodesh. And after learning the sugya, it's a shach, black and white, and it's halacha, black and white. It's yikara, the shikvi. If they say we don't want it, we don't do it. My brother Moshe and Aaron are machmir. They also didn't know the halacha as well as I do, but let's not say that. And therefore they kept Yud Beis. I didn't really keep it that well because I know what my father wanted. I did learn the sugya, and for my father, I didn't miss the kaddish. I didn't miss the davening. I didn't miss anything to give him proper cover, whether it's learning for him or trying to behave. And every time I do something wrong, which is all the time, and all the smart aleck comments that I meant, that I said tonight, my father would smack me for each and every one of them, and I know he'd be angry. However, I hope me, my brothers, and all of us, and our children, which means his grandchildren, are following and giving him nachas, which is the best coverage you can do, and the Yud Beis Chodesh stuff, which is for his coverage. And it's tsar. Don't forget what the Darech Chaim says. It's a mitzvah, the farsam, that a father and a mother should say, don't do it, but that has nothing to do with Kaddish or davening for the Amud or learning even Nishmasam. I want to thank Rabbi Blezer and Rabbi Singer for letting me speak. I hope this was a toeles. It is a lesson from our father. I hope it's a toeles for his neshama that we learned 50 people in the room. And everyone, I hope, will say something good in honor of my father and do something good. And thank you very much for letting me speak. Huh?
Well, maybe all he needed so that you don't have problems. I wouldn't have read it that way. Read the last one.
Your brother-in-law?
What?